Good morning, everybody. It's Kate Richberg, and it is time for Beadshop Live. And yes, I am here with my coffee to do today's project called Coffee Talk, which I'm going to tell you all about. I don't know if you remember that Saturday Night Live skit from years ago when Mike Myers was Linda Richman as Coffee Talk. It was one of my favorites, especially the one where she and Madonna are on the couch and they're on the Linda Richman talk show, and Barbara Streisand shows up. One of my favorite SNL skits of all time. So I named this project Coffee Talk, and we'll talk about it in just a second. But it looks like everybody is here and ready and waiting for this kind of poetry innovations project that I'm going to share with you. I've got a lot to get through today. First and foremost, as you know, so today, if you're watching live, it is Wednesday, October 20th. And it's great to have all you all here as usual and some new watchers, right? It's great to have you. And of course, our seasoned viewers, great to have you as well. Janice is over on YouTube doing some moderating there. And Gita is over on Facebook across the miles from Denmark, also doing some moderating over there. So thank you guys so much for this today. I'm just looking through, I'm seeing everybody jump in and say hello. As you know, so let me tell you how things are going to go down this next week or so. So today we're going to do the Coffee Talk project, which is going to be super fun. I think you guys are going to love it. Number two, on Friday, and Friday, if you're watching it live on Friday, that'll be Friday, October 22nd. I have a pre-recorded show for you this week because, as you may remember from my announcement last week, I'm moving. Don't worry. Janice did her move last weekend. Went smoothly. She's still unpacking, doing some things, but she's safe and sound. My move is this Friday. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Sometimes I'm going to be remote. Sometimes I'm going to be here. It's all very exciting, all very good. But Friday, I have a whole house to load into a moving van. I mean, I'm not gonna, but I have people that are gonna. So anyway, we're really excited to join my parents over in Fresno, California. And so my mom just popped in and said she is at the house getting it ready. So it's going to be fun. So we're really excited about this move. So, but don't worry, it's going to be status quo here at beadshop.com. You'll just see me come around a little bit from different places. So Friday, the pre-recorded broadcast, I'm going to show you what I'm going to be talking about Friday. I'll show you a little bit more from that. It's just a little bit of a tease, but you're going to have fun on Friday, even if I'm not here. And with that pre-recording. And then next week, you guys, next Wednesday is the 27th of October. And if you're watching it live next Wednesday, we're going to have a super celebration. It is our 5-year anniversary of our Beadshop Live broadcast. We started in 2016, broadcasting live over the airwaves. Some of you have been with us from the very, very beginning. Some of you are new viewers, but it's great to have everyone here. I'm going to have a jam-packed show next week, next Wednesday. We're going to be working with the Jewel Loom, where it all started, right? Where it all started. My first broadcast was with the Jewel Loom. My buddy, Julianne Avalar, her wonderful invention, the Jewel Loom. We're going to play with that. I have a whole bunch of giveaways. We have some special offer. It's a 5-year anniversary party, right? So we're going to have fun. So that's happening next Wednesday. Then the following Friday, for that, Janice and I are going to be doing our Bead Doctor broadcast early. Rather than the first Friday of the month, it's going to be the last Friday of the month. So if you have any questions for the Bead Doctor, for Janice and I to answer live on air. You can send your questions to info@beadshop.com. Drea will add them to our document of Bead Doctor questions, and Janice and I will choose some to answer live on air. Okay, so let's get this project started. Okay, so Drea and I were talking about, oh my gosh, what project are we going to do this week? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm running my head off over here. So I thought I would do something that's kind of tried and true. That is what do I want to say? Kind of a relaxing project, one that has a lot of curb appeal, but also one that's pretty easy to do and I don't have to have a lot of prep for it. So it fits that bill completely, which is our poetry project. So I pulled out some of our poetry projects here. I'm going to show you under the camera. So let me add this my camera into the stream here, and let's solo that sucker. And let me pull, so here's the product that I have that I'm using. And you can go right to our website, of course, at beadshop.com. This one is called, as I said earlier, Coffee Talk, and it's right on the front page of the website. You can see that. And it clicks you over to our poetry project on beadshop.com. Okay, this is a project that Janice originated, and maybe she'll tell you a little bit on Bead Doctor about why she can also tell you in the comments and I can read it. But Janice, I think she made the first one of these as a gift for maybe a goddaughter. She's always beading for those god babies or friends or whatever. And she liked it so much that she thought it would be a great product for a project for Beadshop. So I have some here, pardon me, that I want to show you, some of our ones from before. But and then we'll go into the project and how it's going to differ, because I've got a little bit of a twist on this project for you. Yes, and Janice says it was for her goddaughter Chelsea, and it was white pearls and black thread. You can't get any more simple than that, for sure. So the poetry project, the way it started was our classic poetry. When I lay these all out, of course they like to tangle, so let me untangle them a bit. But I've used some different threads with our poetry project. But the classic, simple poetry project that we started doing anyway, that started at the beginning, was just a strand of pearls, some micro C-Lon, a button, and a charm. That's it, right? Super easy. And the micro C-Lon, when I was talking with Drea about the thread and stuff that we were going to use for this project, I'm like, oh my God, for me on air, it feels like the micro C-Lon takes me forever because it's micro, it's small, right? You can see that. The thread is smaller. I love the look of it with the pearls. I think that it adds, it's delicate, but super strong. You can see that there's a pearl and then an even amount of stitches in between. Couldn't be easier. And then the pearls are threaded on a double strand of that micro C-Lon underneath. Okay. Over the years, we have kind of riffed, I guess, is the right question or the right term for this. So you can see here's another poetry project, also on micro. With pearls, you have to use the micro unless you do it my newfangled way. But you can also see here, Janice added bugle beads to this one. Okay. This is going to be really nice. It wears really, really nicely. And you can see she's used some big pearls, some small pearls, put the little bugles in and amongst the stringing, and it looks fantastic, I think. Then we also have a poetry project called Eclectic Poetry, not the classic. And the Eclectic Poetry simply incorporates some different beads going beyond pearls. So some of these are beads we're no longer able to get, but you can certainly substitute with them. This one here has a 6 millimeter fire polish, a 4 millimeter fire polish, and a 6 millimeter round. Again, on the micro. Really pretty. This one here. This one here has the little shadows and some 6 millimeter fire polish. I have one of those Buddha heads in it, charm, all of this. So you can kind of play around with what you like here. Then I think I did this project. This is one where I started to utilize larger threads. And I think that this one might be, I think it's regular. Yeah, I think this is regular C-Lon. And you can see probably underneath maybe is fine. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look at the project. But the holes on all of these beads are pretty large, so they probably fit on the regular. And you can see here how I go along macrame, capture 2 of these shadow beads, macrame, 2 shadows, and then that 6 millimeter bead here. Okay, so so it's all good. So we are all set with that one. I think it's really pretty. I love it. I love the sage color of it. It's great. So you can jump right over to the poetry project and get started with that. I also have this project next to me. I wanted to show you before I got any other kind of into the poetry project that I'm going to do. It's a great layering project for this one. This is the one that I did last week, the wire wrapped one. I finished it up. Claire updated it on the website, so it looks fantastic. You've got a project map, and you can see I finished all of the wire wrapping. I added everything, so it's a complete project. I'm still super in love with this closure that I did, right? I really, really love it. And this would be a great project. Oh, mostly these poetry projects we wear as bracelets, but they also look really great as necklaces, and you can certainly layer them together. I think it looks really, really great. Okay. So Amy is saying, I tried many years ago to do micro macrame with tiny threads and never picked it up again. Yes, Amy, with this heavier thread, with the regular C-Lon, I think you're really going to love it. Okay, I think you're going to love it. So I hope so, anyway. So, Cyanine says, thank you. These would be great presents for my girlfriends. And for sure, these would be, the holidays are coming up, and they're not super fast, depending on how fast of a macrameer you are, right? But you can really, they don't take that long, and they're very portable. So they're a lot of fun to work with. So if you're looking for, a gift that really appeals across the board for all of your friends, especially just keeping it simple with pearls and the smaller thread, will work really well. Or you can incorporate really any beads, right, that work on the thread of your choice. So for today, what we're going to do with this coffee talk, and remember how last week, was it last week? 2 weeks ago, when I did the project that had the silk running through it, this is going to be kind of the same. Okay, kind of the same idea behind that. But I really wanted to cement this project or this technique in your head because I really like using this silk with needle as the base for my macrame. Okay, so let me show you what I'm using. I have a 6 millimeter round. In this case, it's wood opalite, I believe, is what I chose, the 6 millimeter. And it has a nice large hole. And it kind of looks a little bit like a cafe au lait kind of color, right? Coffee and cream color. So again, Coffee Talk is a great name for it, even if I do say so myself. Uh, we have a 4 millimeter bead, so you can go to the project and you'll see like the recipe. So if these colors don't quite float your boat, you can use whatever it is you want to use. So there's the 4 millimeters right there. I threw in a 5 millimeter rondelle because why not, right? You can't go wrong with a rondelle. I like the shape that this rondelle imparts to the piece. Gives it a little bit of negative space, right? So I'm going to throw those out there. And of course I've got pearls, and these are the 7 millimeter almost round. I'm going to throw them in there as well. Number one, because I don't, oh, I do have another beading tray. Never mind. I'll put them in its own little tray. I cleaned everything up, and you know, when I clean things up, I can't find anything, right? I just can't. So here is everything here that I'm using. Now, I also have a button. This is the B button, that great new one from TierraCast that we love so much. It's all the buzz about coffee, and the succulent charm, which I love with the jump ring here. Now, I'm going to do this. I thought about pre-prepping a little bit. Number one, I don't have that kind of time in my life this week. But number two, I thought you could also see me make this in real time so you can get kind of an idea of how it really goes together with the exact things that I've chosen. So that, at least that's what I'm telling myself. Okay, so here is size 2 silk thread. Now, I could have popped up to a size 4 along the base, right? But the 2 with these pearls is really what fits. Okay, so that's what I used with the 2. This is pretty heavy cord, so I think it's going to be fine, right? Any heavier than this, and you do, some of your pearl strands will vary a little bit, so you have to test it. When I buy Gouda Broad, the Griffin Silk, by the card, I'll get several sizes just in case I'm not correct in my guessing for the sizes, right? They're not very expensive. Then you'll have them in your stash, so you won't have to go kind of running around, right? Okay, so so I'm going to use size 2. So let's go ahead and unwind it. If you haven't used this silk with needle yet, it's kind of it's a Beadshop staple that we've used for years. It is a doubled strand of cord that has been, a needle has been affixed to it. The thread goes through and then it twists by machine. And it all goes through here. So I'm going to unwind it. This is 2 meters. So you have plenty of thread to work with. I'm actually off camera now stretching this thread. I actually put the bottom, and you've seen me do this on air before, but I put the bottom of the thread, the non-needle end, and you can see this thread here as I just kind of stretch it between my hands like this, okay? And that's how I stretch it. Now, Hale is saying here, she is saying she was taught to wet the silk and stretch it while it was wet. You can. I've honestly never wet my silk. I usually just stretch it. But I give it a good tug, right? A good pull. Because if I don't stretch it, it might have a tendency to stretch a little bit because it is a natural fiber and it's twisted. But you can take that extra step if that, if that's kind of your go-to. There's nothing wrong with wetting the silk. And also sometimes if I don't have the silk the right color I need, silk is really, really dyeable. Hale's also saying it still stretches after you knot a necklace. Silk will stretch. That's just how it is because it is such a natural fiber, especially if you are hanging your necklaces, right? And they're hanging up and gravity is pulling them down, right? It'll stretch, right? So what I would do if you are storing your pearl necklaces, like that great player from Jock from the Atlanta Braves. I bet he probably wears his pearls now 24/7, but I'm telling you now, Jock, don't hang those pearls because they'll stretch. Lay them flat to store them. Okay. I also grabbed a size 4 thread here, and this actually also fits. So 4 will also work. So I will, you could use either. So if you have size 4 at home, you can use it too. Okay. I'm going to stick with the size 2 that I have on the list. Okay. So another quick swig of coffee, and let's get this set up. So the base of your poetry project, okay, let me get one here. Might be easier for you to see this one because it's heavy. The base of your poetry is what your threads, is what your beads obviously are strung on. And in the traditional poetry project that we have, I'm going to try and draw this out for you so you can kind of see this. Hang on, let me get this little piece of paper and show you. Bear with me here. And you can download the handout. We have a really great handout on the poetry. But if this is your needle, okay, your twisted needle right here, okay, your thread, you have a tail here, you've got thread, you've got a tail coming out here, okay, like that. Then your button goes on here, and then your beads get strung on this needle, okay? Then the strands, the tails that you've pulled out come in, and that's what you make your knots with the tails, right? Pardon me. So this is all one long doubled over thread with the tails coming out. Okay, that's how you do the classic poetry. But here, what we're going to do is the base thread and the thread that you macrame are separate. So you can use these really like pearls that have small holes like this. You can use them with no problem and still be able to use a heavier thread over the top. I wanted my thread to be a little more forward for this. I really like the way that this heavier thread looks, though also the kind of, petite look of this micro C-Lon also looks great. So it's just giving you a few more choices, I guess. And there's also a question, Christine has a question, and yeah, CKC can be used. You could use a 0.4 millimeter over the top of this. You sure could. And just depending on the size of your beads too, you could pop up even higher, but Chinese knotting cord would also work. Okay. So here we go. Let's start by putting my button on. I'm going to open it up here a little bit more, whoops. There we go. Straighten that out. I'm going to string this all the way to the back. Whoops. And inevitably, there's a knot. Right? Thread just wants to knot. Let me see if I can get it in through this side. This button is pretty large of an opening. There we go. Okay, so now that's on. So now the thread, if I wanted a little bit of an extra, sorry, my camera keeps turning. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm going to keep this thread that I'm working with, my working thread, a little short, so I'm not using a huge giant strand of thread. It's also very easy to add cord with this project, so I'll show you, okay, how to add it. I'm going to cut about a yard just to start. Okay, if I were doing this in real life, I'd probably cut maybe 2 yards. Okay. Now you can, and this, Trish is asking what size silk. This is a size 2 that I have underneath here, but you could also use a size 4. Just depends on what you, what beads you're going to string on the base strand. Okay, so here we go. I'm also, for a little bit of added protection, I'm also going to string my macrameing thread through the shank of the button. If you're using a button that has holes rather than a shank like this, you just put your threads through here, comes down, and start your macrameing here. Okay. So I'm going to put this on my little strand of twine that I think we named one of these broadcasts the Spool of Mark Twine. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week. And sorry, bad puns. Now, let me get this up here. When you first start your macrame, it feels like you're using 5 million clampers, and you are, kind of, right? So I'm going to start here by clamping the silk down here on this board. You could also use a macrame board if you wanted to as well. Just depends on what you want to do. I'm going to use my my design board because I like using that. Now this little end here also has to be tightened down. So I'm going to clamp it to the other base strand right here. See that? Now everything is nice and, sorry, my camera keeps moving. Let me tighten that up. There we go. That's better. So it's clamped here, it's clamped at the bottom. And now I come in, my thread is nice and tight there. And I'm just going to come in and I'm going to start the macrame. Just like this. So I'm going to start from the left. We have a skill builder on the macrame, but essentially I make a loop with my left hand thread, come over the base thread with my right hand thread. I come over that tail from the loop, under the center strands, and up through the loop here. And tighten. And that's my first one. And you want to give it just a touch of air. You don't want to shove it right up against the shank of the button, but you want it to be pretty close. And I'm going to macrame until I clear the button. And so if I do a series of these half hitches, a knot to the left and here's a knot to the right, alternating those stitches, see, over the tail, under the base thread, and out through the loop, and reverse it, make a loop on the other side, thread goes over the tail, under the center, and up through the loop. And again, you can consult our skill builders on beadshop.com for a more in-depth, I guess. Whoops, I took these off of my board and now I've got beads rolling everywhere. I just didn't want to knock them over with my vigorous macrameing. So I'm going to clear the button and then I'm going to show you what this looks like, okay? And I'm macrameing over a double strand here at the beginning. right? Because I looped that base cord through. And can you see that here? Like so, right? So now I'm going to add just a little bit of thread of glue to that thread, just underneath there, just so it doesn't pull out. Okay, and I'm going to macrame over the top of that. Just as a reminder, if you've stopped, right, and you don't quite know which side to start from, the side that has this little scallop, that's the side that you make the loop on. Okay, so I also, you guys, have a giveaway in a little bit, so I'll stop the demoing in a little bit. I'll tell you how to enter the giveaway if you've never entered one of our live giveaways before, and then we'll draw live on air for the prize I have for you today. I love the giveaways. They're so much fun. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to clip away this thread I've glued, and I've, come down almost a half an inch here with my knotting, so I can just get rid of this little, and I can use my thread burner if I want to, or I can clip it. I've got a thread burner here, so I haven't thread burned in a while. So when you use the thread burner, you guys, you want to place the thread burner where you want it, then hit the button, and then it'll burn that thread right away. It's nice on the silk because it does kind of cauterize the end of that thread so it doesn't untwirl, okay, or untwist. Now I'll just macrame to cover up that little spot there. Now I'm ready to go, okay? So in some of these poetry projects, I have done a repeating pattern, which looks nice, okay? On others, I have done them randomly. So you decide what you want to do, okay? For this one, I don't know. I was thinking, oh, I'll do a pattern, but nah, you know me, it's hard for me to do a pattern. I'm just going to put some on, okay? So here's my needle, and it's very easy for me to string these now. So I'm going to do a 5mm, 2 4mm, and you can pre-string a bunch of these. A 6mm, if I can find the hole. There you go. And a pearl. If your needle, sometimes these wire needles get a little bent, so you just have to straighten them out. There we go. I'll put on 2 pearls. Okay. I'm going to push them all up. And now, can you see here how I have my working thread area right here? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to clip this silk here so it's taut, so it's ready to go. Not super bouncy, but bouncy enough that it's tight. Okay, so I can get a nice good macrame stitch. Okay. Carrie, I love this comment that made my day. I'm thinking I need to start one of these today, 2 exclamation marks. I'm all random for sure today, unless my crazy brain needs structure. I don't know, Carrie, are you and I separated at birth? I feel the same way. It's like, do I need some structure or do I just need to go with it? I don't know. We'll see. So all I'm going to do now it's just the same thing, except I'm adding beads. All right, so I'm going to slide up that 5mm. Now you can decide, this is where you also want to decide, do you want to be random with the spacing of the knots in between. You can see right here how I did 2 and then more and then more and then back down, whatever. Okay, so I think I'm just going to be completely random with this. So I'm just going to start. I know it doesn't really matter which way you or which side after you've pushed a bead up. It doesn't matter which side you start with to do your knot, right? But if you see here, that little scallop is here on this side. So I just try to make it best practice to notice that and start from this side. But the bead being right up here, it doesn't matter which side you start for your knot. I hope that makes sense. So there's one. Now when you do your first knot and then you come in to do your second knot, sometimes the thread wants to loosen a little bit. So you make the knot, and if the knot above it loosens, then give that knot a little tug, and then just sometimes I put my finger there, but this looks like it's grabbing on just fine. Comes in and then it knots. All right. So I'm going to do this at what I like to say Kate speed. You can also lift if you need to. I have a couple of spools of almost spent C-Lon here. So I can use that C-Lon right here to open up a little tunnel underneath. Makes it a little bit easier for my fingers to grab this. So I'm going to go along until I feel like I want another bead on there. And see that single strand of number 2? That looks just fine underneath. And there's hardly any difference from the doubled strand that I did up here to the single strand that's going on here. Does that make sense? So this really allows you to use a heavier thread over the top and string beads that have small holes, aka these freshwater pearls. So you can have many more choices here. Again, that CKC that was mentioned before, a 4 millimeter or a 0.4 millimeter. I have some right here. That would look great as well. Okay. So let me go ahead. I'm going to slide up another 4 millimeter. Actually, let me finish this off and make it even. There we go. Whoops, that was the wrong side though. See how that's starting to twist? That was incorrect. There we go. See how I used the awl to just pull that little stitch out? There we go. And I could see it was incorrect because I saw that stitch started to twist, right? And I was like, wait, that's not right. So I just took it out and reversed it to the other side. So now for something like this, when I do an intentional repeat of beads, sometimes I'll use just maybe 2 stitches in between. So that was 1 full half hitch. This is 1 full square knot and another full square knot with the 2 half hitches. Then I'll bring up my other one and I'll do 2 more sets. So they lay a little close, right? So it looks maybe like intentional. I don't know. Whatever. But I just wanted to show you that. All right. Now it's time to bring up a 6 millimeter. So I will. These 6 millimeters, they're a shiny bead, so you might have to adjust the thread around it just slightly because the bead is a little slick. Okay. There we go. And now I'll pull up this pearl. Let me go one more. I'm trying to get into the rhythm of stopping with the loop is going to go on this side. Sometimes I like to make sure I've got that rhythm. But again, once you slide a bead on, it doesn't really matter which side of the thread you begin to macrame with, because the bead kind of acts as a reset button for your knots, if that makes sense. There we go. So you can see, especially on this heavier thread, it goes pretty fast. I mean, I'm a fast macrame-er, right? Let me do a couple more and I will pull that next bead up. Then I'll show you, I've got a couple of questions I want to answer, and then I'm going to change thread for you. Okay, there we go there. Slide this up. Whoops, I keep ending on the left. I want to end on the right. There we go. Slide that up. And it's just so that my knots look like they have full square knots when I complete them and start them again. Which is why I'm being a little picky. I don't know. Maybe since I feel like I don't have control over this, anything from moving, I'm just not worrying about it. But I can control which stitch I put where in this project, right? So here's that. Okay, so I'll continue on. So now, let me tell you, there's a couple of questions here that I want to go back and address. So Hale asked here, is Griffin Silk stronger than the smallest C-Lon? And it's not necessarily stronger, but Shirley posted a great answer that I'm going to share. She says, not sure if it's stronger, but it has the needle on the end to string the beads, which is super helpful. Exactly. It's already built in. You could use a double strand of micro C-Lon in the exact same way here. Put it over the needle and then just use that as I've done this silk with needle, right? And then there was another question here. And Janice answered, and she says, Griffin Silk is twisted and micro C-Lon isn't, the two strands. The thread itself is twisted, but the two threads together wouldn't be. They're both strong, but to be really neck and neck, the micro C-Lon has to be doubled, and that's correct. So you would always double. I like doubling underneath here with this poetry project. Okay. So there you go. So let me come in here and I'm going to add some thread. Okay. So let me get this up and over so I don't cut anything here. And let's say that it's time I've run out of thread here. Maybe I have about 3 inches or so left. When it starts getting short and you have difficulty tying your knots, that's when you know that it's time, that the time has come to switch out threads. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to pull these 2 threads that I'm knotting with down and add them to the clip on the bottom of my tray. And I know right now we're out of clampers. The supply chain issues have affected so many things that we get, and clampers are one of them. They're slated to come in sometime soon, so make sure that you're on the product notification list for them if you're watching this live and we happen to be out of them. We will have them back in stock. They're such a great thing to have. They're very inexpensive. So when you get them, I would get 2 or 3 pairs so you have plenty to work with. Okay. So here is all of these threads captured so they're nice and tight. So all I do is I've cut a brand new thread, another yard, right? And I'll start, find the center of that thread. And I'll just start tying a knot. So here we go. There's my first loop. It's going over to the left. over the tail, under the center threads, and tie that knot just below so it blends right in. Okay, now I'll just keep going. Just like we did for the closure for the button, and if it slides down, just slide it up there. I want to add a little bit of glue here, just a touch, not much. This is the GS Hypo, just a hair, so that when I knot over the top of that glue, everything kind of bonds together and nothing's going to slip. So there's one over the glue, and it looks like I need a second one over the glue. Now it's time to remove the tails. So I'm going to take them out of the clip. If I'm using a bead design board, a macrame board, right, I could put these tails in the little side grooves here, but I'm just going to go ahead and clamp them out of the way so I don't accidentally snip the wrong ones, which would be a bummer. Okay, so here's my base thread, here are my new working threads. Now I'm going to come in and remove these. Okay, so where's my thread burner? Here it is. I'll come in with my C-Lon, my regular C-Lon, slide it to where I want it to be. Be very careful to keep the rest of these threads out of the way. Push the button on the thread burner and burn that off. Be really deliberate. And I like to thread it through the center of the thread burner here. You don't want to pull the thread burner until it's been heated, okay, because you'll pull the tip right off. Whoops, I have to push the button. There we go. So that's it. Put your lid back on. Be careful because that tip that you cauterize the thread with is hot, so you don't want to burn yourself. And now I can add another bead or have a couple more stitches or whatever. I'm going to add some more beads here just to have them on. Maybe this one. A couple of these 5mm rondelles. Nice generous hole sizes on these. A 4mm. Whoops. Come on, come back here. That one doesn't want to go on right now. I'm going to get another one. There we go. So now I've got my next section set up. I'm going to unclip my leash here. Pull this down a little bit so I'm catching my project a little bit higher. So now I've got some more working room here. Come in, clip it here with my clamper. And I'll be ready to continue. Okay, so let me add myself to this for a moment and tell you, I'm going to come right back to this. We'll finish this up. I'm going to show you how to do the loop, how to close it up. Okay. But I want to explain to you about the giveaway if you're new here for the giveaway. For our giveaways, we do them live here on air, right? And what you're going to do before I give you the little phrase that the hashtag that you're going to put in the comments to enter, before leaving a comment, if you're watching in our Facebook group, the Bead Table today, and you haven't granted StreamYard, which is our streaming platform that I use for these videos, you need to grant StreamYard permission to see your name at streamyard.com/Facebook, because groups are private. right? And so the bead table being a private group, StreamYard can't see your info. So you have to go right over to the page right here. It'll look like this. And you just push that blue button, let StreamYard see your Facebook Live comments, and you only have to do this once. It should remember it unless you clear your cookies or your cache or your browser at any time. Okay, so make sure that you've done that. And then the phrase that we're going to use today to win, let me show you what you're going to win. You might remember last week or a couple weeks ago, I had a Bead Heaven mix that I was giving away. I have another one. I reached into my stash, and this is a mostly purple Bead Heaven bead mix. I'm going to have some more Bead Heaven bead mixes coming out soon. This is where I take all of our kind of leftover delicious beads and make them into a little mix here. And they're all different, all put together by me. This one is called Mostly Purple. So we will draw for that one in a little bit. So the hashtag, you guys, that you are going to do today is, bear with me here just a second, is mix. Enter hashtag mix in the comments to enter our giveaway. And giveaway entries are accepted on the live broadcast during the live today only, 10/20/21. Okay, so if you're watching this on replay, I'm sorry you won't qualify, but those of you who are watching live, add hashtag mix into the comments. Great, and I can see everybody. I can see everybody's name. This is great. You guys are doing a great job, so add it on in. Okay, so let's go back to this project, shall we? And let's talk a little bit. Let me get a few of those on there, and then I'm going to show you how to do the loop. Okay, so I'm going to just tie 2 more to get past this little place where I added the thread so it looks nice and clear. There's a tiny little bit of a tail that I want to hide in that knot. There we go. That looks nice and clean. Now I'll slide up a bead. And you want to measure this depending on whether you want to make this as a bracelet, like a wrap bracelet, or as a necklace. You just kind of want to figure out your sizing, right? Bracelets would be in multiples of about between 7 and 7.25, maybe 7.5 inches, depending on your wrist size and depending on the number of wraps, right? The bulkier your wraps are, the more room you need to have. But you'll measure this out. And then to close this off, what I'm going to do, do I want to add any more beads? I don't think so. I think I'm just going to go for the loop here. So I'm going to macrame fast here, because as you finish, you want to macrame a length that when looped over, your button will fit through. I'm going so fast, I'm pulling this base thread out of whack here. So just bear with me here as I get this done. This always feels like it takes forever. Now to measure for your button, what I do is I'm going to fold this loop over in half and measure it to make sure that the button goes through. You don't, on these necklaces, you really need to get it kind of right on the money. You don't want to make this loop too big because the button, especially if you're using a button that's a little smaller, the button might slip out of the loop if it's too big, especially with this loop that's a little bit has a little bit of a heavier cord. So you just want to be really careful when you're sizing. And I'll show you, I'm getting pretty close to the end here, and I'll measure it. I know it's a little bit like watching paint dry, but bear with me here. The payoff will be good. And it's also really good practice for you to do your macrame stitches, right? The faster you get, obviously, don't go too fast and screw it up like I'm doing here. Let me tighten this down. There we go. But you'll get faster and your project will go more quickly. You can also take a look at our Macrame Sampler that we have. I did that broadcast a few weeks ago. That Macrame Sampler shows you some different stitches for this basic macrame. You could do this with the flat knot. You could also do this with the spiral knot, would also look good incorporated into this design. It just depends on the look that you want. You can mix it up certainly in your piece as well. Okay, so keep adding that hashtag mix. That's looking good, right? That looks good. And you want to make sure, you guys, if you can enter the giveaway as many times as you want, but the random generator that picks the winner is only going to see one of your entries. So it doesn't matter how fast or whatever, as long as we're on the live broadcast watching now, hashtag mix. You only need to enter it one time. So let's see this length and see what this looks like. Okay. And then Pat, that's a good question. And I'm going to answer your question in just a second. Let's take a look here. This button in size, the total button is about 14.5 millimeters. So from here to here to the center of the button, yep, should be, it's about 7 right there. Okay, so I'm going to fold this loop over. I'm going to test it. See, it almost goes through like this. I can cheat it down a little bit. See how that, but I need a little bit more space right there to close the macrame off. So I'm going to give myself, I don't know, maybe another 1/4 of an inch or so. Let me re-tack this down. Let me add just a few more stitches here. Let me get this nice and tight on the board. Because if your piece is not tight on the board, your macrame is going to be all wonky. Okay, let me put Pat's question up here. Do I make sure it's a bracelet first and length and that should also make it a necklace, or is there a minimum length that you need to meet? So for a bracelet, as long as, if you just wanted to make this a single wrap, right, a single bracelet length, you could just do that, right? It would be really fast and easy. You could put, lots of beads and a few stitches in between, however you wanted to do it. But just take that measurement, and for a bracelet, you'd make it in multiples of whatever that length is. For a necklace, for me, if I were wrapping this, let's say it would be a 2-strand necklace and I wanted to wrap it twice, it would probably be each of these lengths. I like a necklace that's probably about 18 inches for me, so I'd make this in multiples of 18 inches, and then I would add this loop onto the end, right? This closure and the button. For a necklace, it doesn't have to be exactly spot on, but just find what your length is and then make it in those multiples, whatever works for you. If you make this really long, like when I kind of do my random stringing of pieces, long necklaces that I wrap, I just kind of string them and then they lay as they lay, right? But you can um, be a little more um, exact with your piece. So let's see what I've got here for this length. It's about 50 millimeters or a little over 2 inches. Okay, so let's see if how that looks. So I'm going to undo this. That looks about right. And see here as I slide that button through, that's exactly how I want it to fit. Now, can you see here how I've got a lot of length here? That's what I want, because as I come in and close this up, I need some space here to macrame over so that my macrame doesn't run right up into this button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little leash here. I'm going to pull this through, all the while kind of keeping this where I want it. I don't want to lose that measurement. And I'm going to clip it right there. Okay, so it's nice and tight. So I know that length, and I'm going to clip it to my board. Then I'm going to come in, and this is really short because obviously this is my sample. So I want to come in from underneath. It's a little hard to manipulate it with this big clamp here, but can you see how I've flipped it over so that open edge is on the bottom? And I'm going to make another little leash here to just pull this tight and clip on the other side here. Okay. So now to close, I'm just going to bring the base strand is underneath here. This is going to get incorporated into it as well. And I'm just going to come in and tighten up my first knot. Now I can unclamp it. Kind of make sure that this sits right where this loop comes together. And then I'll do it here on the other side. So I'm basically macrameing a new connection or a new section right over the old section here. And just kind of, the stitches kind of sit and lock themselves in over the base. And go down as far as you want to go. Okay. Now there's a couple of ways we could close this off. So you can use a big eye needle, right? And what I do is I lay it on here, I macrame over the top and pull the threads through right underneath the macrame to kind of lock them in place. I could add some glue here along the sides, glue it, let it sit, and thread burn it out. Okay. But what I'm going to show you, I'm going to use the CKC because it'll be easier for you guys to see. I'm going to make my own little needle because I don't have, not a big eye, but a collapsible eye needle. Just go with me on this here. I'm going to lay this cord down and I'm going to clip it underneath there. I like this CKC because it's kind of slick, so we'll see how it works. I just happen to have it here. Now I'm going to macrame over that CKC that I've laid down. Of course, I've got tiny little bits of thread left over, which is super annoying. Let me get this loop down a little bit further. There we go. I can also to keep it out of the way, let me clamp it to that. There we go. So let me just do a few little stitches here to capture that CKC strand underneath. And I would do this for at least, I don't know, sorry about that siren outside. Hopefully it's not stopping anywhere near here, though it sounds kind of ominous. I'm just going to come in maybe a series of 4 or 5 knots. Ugh, why is it that I always have the tiniest bit of thread here to work with? And I tell myself to cut plenty of thread, but that's okay. Okay, so I will have gone over the top, okay? Macrame, macrame, macrame. Then I'm going to put my strands through, one going one way, one going the other. So I've got some slack here. And I'm going to add right here at the ends, I'm not going to actually do it, but a little bit of glue there and a little bit of glue there, so that when this thread gets pulled up underneath this macrame, the glue will get pulled up as well. Okay? So now I'm going to come in, and this should pull those strands. There we go. I kind of had to hold my finger there so things wouldn't get disrupted, and pull with this hand. You saw that, right? And then they come through, and see how they're locked in now. There's no little bare end right there. I would macrame this maybe a little bit longer, or start this a little bit higher up there, right? I could also get a needle, maybe a big eye needle or a collapsible eye needle, and probably tuck this up a little bit further there. But that's it. Maybe add just a touch more glue, thread burn those tails away, and then I would also thread burn that base strand away, if that makes sense. Okay, and that's all there is to it. I would probably pull this down all the way down to that large bead, so it wouldn't have, like you can see here, it doesn't look so elegant with a skinny piece of macrame here going into this fat piece here. So I'd macrame all the way down to whatever the first bead or the last bead is that you put in the mix. Okay, if that makes sense for you. All right, that's it. And this 0.4 millimeter really is slick, so it really pulled in easily. You could also use C-Lon for this, but the C-Lon isn't as slick, so this goes right through, right? Looks good. I like it a lot. So that's it. That's all she wrote. So I see that we have been adding in a bunch of comments here, which is great. I'm going to let the comments go for just a few more moments, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Friday broadcast that I have for you. So Janice was was busy moving. And one of my vendors called that I haven't seen since pre-pandemic, one of my African trade bead vendors who we've been buying from for a million years. And he said, "Hey, Kate, I'm in town. And do you want some beads?" I said, "Yes, I do." So I bought some beads that we're going to debut on Friday, things that we don't normally carry. And it's going to be a trunk show, special trunk show. So we're going to sell where a lot of times we sell these beautiful recycled glass just by the bead, we're going to sell them by the strand. And I've got limited amounts of things. Okay, so they're going to go up. I'm going to pre-record a show on Friday. I'm going to pre-record the show actually today. And then it's going to go up on Friday, regular Free Tip Friday time at 11:30. I'm going to show you all the stuff. Okay. Then at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, Drea is going to turn the sale. The sale will go on live. Okay. And they'll sell until they sell out. So that's the thing, about having an online business like this. It's not like when we were a brick and mortar store, right? Our vendors would come through, and if they only had 5 strands of something, that's fine. We'd have 5 strands, we'd sell the 5 strands, right? So the way I think is kind of fun for these limited amounts of strands, because they're pretty limited, and not enough for us to go really deep on our website, right? To have them in forever for you guys to shop. But the trunk shows really make it fun. Limited editions, they're here for a short time and then they go. But I am loving these guys here. They're a little larger than our regular gooseberry beads. They're a 8.5 millimeter by about 7.5 millimeter with a nice generous hole. This is my favorite, this burnt orange. I just can't tell you. We've got this swirl, this amber swirl, beautiful. This kind of water-colored currant. And then these, some of my favorites, these Lost Wax cast beads from Ghana. 15.5 millimeter, a little bit more, by 16.5, really generous hole, hollow. If you saw the bead, the necklace I made out of my tribal bead stash, it had some of these in. And then I've got 4 different, I'm only going to show you this one. I've got 4 different pendants that are also launching. A bunch of cool stuff. And they all kind of go. So I hope you like them. We'll have more fun things like this. But this really reads fall to me. So this will be Friday. And it will go live. Watch your newsletters. So if you have not gone over to beadshop.com and got yourself on our newsletter, please do. That's where you find out about projects like this or releases like this, discounts, all that kind of stuff. So before let's go ahead and draw. Okay. So here's our Bead Heaven bead mix. There's some I-Ching coins in there. I see there's some amethyst. There's a few little, I don't know, glass beads. There's some other, it's a good one. I think you guys will like it, whoever wins it. So let me go ahead and add my giveaway screen into the mix here. There we go. We've got 168 entries. This may be the most entries that we've ever had. So let's go ahead and draw. Who's it going to be? It's going to be Mossy Cup Oak Studio. Mossy Cup, I know that you have a name beyond Mossy Cup Oak Studio. So what I want you to do is, I want you, and you're watching over on YouTube, so email your mailing information to info@beadshop.com. Drea will let me know that we have your address, and I will send this right out to you. I also like to screenshot it just so I remember. Okay, so congratulations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next week, we are going to have a bunch of really fun giveaways that I've got for you in honor of our 5th anniversary, so you're not going to want to miss it. Okay, so I hope that you have enjoyed let's see if there's any other comments here, that you've enjoyed this kind of little walk down the poetry lane here, right? So go ahead and mark your calendars for my Friday show. I won't be here live. I will be moving. I'll be in the middle of moving truck, right? So go ahead and watch that pre-recorded. I'll show you all the stuff, and then the trunk show itself goes live at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. Okay, so do remember you can find us on all of our social. Follow us at beadshop.com, the Bead Table on Facebook, or like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at beadshop.com. And thank you so much for watching if you're watching it live or on our replay. Also, remember that you can find the information on the project and the products from today's broadcast right on our website. Sign up for our newsletter, as I said earlier, for the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. And this month, all month long, we have this right on our website. You use coupon code AUTUMN10, and it'll take 10% off all orders, no minimum. And that will also be valid for the trunk show on Friday. Okay. So again, congratulations to Mossy Cup Oak Studio, who's the winner. So get in touch with your mailing information right to info@beadshop.com, and I'll send that right out. I will see all you all, somebody flying around here. I will see all you all next week. I'll be back in office. We'll celebrate 5 years of broadcasting. And Julie, I got your info about the camera and everything that we use. I'm sorry, I just haven't emailed you back, but I will. So I've got your email in my email box. So I'm sorry about that. I'm a little bit behind on my correspondence. Thanks, everybody, ever so much. We always appreciate your support. Our small business could not survive without you and your support. So we appreciate your social shares, your comments, your orders, your support always. So thanks again. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy the trunk show. I hope you like the things as much as I do. And I will see you pre-recorded on Friday and live again a week from today. Thanks so much, everyone. Talk to you soon.